I, 32F, have an older sister Sarah, 35F, who has been my rock throughout my life. Our story goes back to when we lost our parents in a terrible car accident when I was 15 and she was 18. Instead of going to college, Sarah took on the responsibility of raising me. She worked 2 jobs, one at a diner during the day and another as a bartender at night, just to make sure I had everything I needed. I remember how she would come home exhausted but still make time to help me with my homework or listen to my teenage drama. She made sure I never felt the absence of our parents too deeply. Growing up, Sarah was more than just a sister to me. She was my best friend, my confidant, and my mother figure all rolled into one. She sacrificed her own dreams so I could pursue mine. When I got accepted to college, she insisted on paying for it even though money was tight. She wouldn't let me take student loans or work part-time, saying she wanted me to focus solely on my studies. I always felt guilty about it, but she would say that seeing me succeed was all she wanted. I met James, 34M, at a friend's party 7 years ago. He was charming, successful, and seemed to genuinely care about me. Sarah was initially skeptical about him, saying he seemed too perfect to be true. But after a few months of dating, she completely changed her tune and became his biggest supporter. She would often invite us over for dinner or plan weekend trips together. James and Sarah got along so well that sometimes I even felt a bit left out of their inside jokes and conversations. We dated for 3 years before getting married. Sarah threw herself into wedding planning with such enthusiasm that sometimes it felt like it was her wedding rather than mine. She insisted on being my maid of honor and organized everything from the venue to the flowers. The wedding was perfect, and I thought I had everything I could ever want: a loving husband and an amazing sister who got along great with him. The first few years of marriage were wonderful, or at least I thought they were. James was attentive and loving, always surprising me with gifts or planning romantic dates. If he sometimes worked late or had to go on sudden business trips, I never questioned it because I trusted him completely. Sarah would often come over during these times to keep me company, saying she didn't want me to feel lonely. Everything changed 8 months ago when I discovered that James had been cheating on me with multiple women. It happened by chance. I was using his iPad to watch Netflix when messages started popping up from someone named Lisa. The messages were explicit and made it clear they had been seeing each other for months. When I confronted James, he initially tried to deny it, but then more evidence kept coming up: other women, hotel receipts, secret phone bills. I was devastated and immediately moved out of our house. Sarah, being the amazing sister she was, took me in without hesitation. She helped me find a divorce lawyer, attended all the meetings with me, and held me while I cried myself to sleep many nights. She seemed just as angry at James as I was, calling him every name in the book and promising me that karma would get him eventually. The divorce was messy but finally got finalized 3 months ago. Throughout the process, Sarah was my biggest support system. She even helped me track down some of James's hidden assets that he hadn't disclosed during the proceedings. I don't know how I would have gotten through it without her. Last month, Sarah announced her engagement to Tom, 36M, her boyfriend of 1 year. Tom seemed like a genuinely nice guy, successful businessman, kind personality, and clearly adored my sister. I was thrilled for her because after everything she had sacrificed for me, she deserved all the happiness in the world. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, I agreed immediately. I wanted to repay all her kindness by making her wedding just as perfect as she had made mine. I threw myself into wedding planning, partly to help Sarah and partly to keep my mind off my own failed marriage. We spent hours looking at venues, tasting cakes, and going through wedding magazines. It felt good to focus on something positive after months of dealing with divorce drama. Everything was going perfectly until last week. I was at Sarah's place helping her create a wedding planning spreadsheet. She needed to shower before a meeting with the florist, so she asked me to look through some venue photos on her laptop while she got ready. As I was clicking through the photos, I accidentally clicked on her email tab that was open in the browser. What I saw made me physically sick. There were hundreds of emails between Sarah and James, going back almost 2 years. They weren't just casual exchanges, they were detailed conversations about his affairs. Sarah had been actively helping him hide everything from me. She would create alibis for him when he was with other women, warn him when I was getting suspicious, and even helped him hide money during the divorce by keeping it in her account. The worst part was how they talked about me in these emails. They joked about how naive and trusting I was, with Sarah calling me her clueless little sister and James referring to me as the perfect fool. There were emails where Sarah would tell James about my private conversations with her, things I had shared in confidence when I was suspicious about his behavior. She would advise him on how to better manipulate me based on what I had told her. When Sarah came out of the shower, I confronted her with the emails. At first, she tried to laugh it off as some kind of misunderstanding. When that didn't work, she claimed that James had manipulated her into helping him by threatening to expose some secret from her past. I asked her what this big secret was, but she couldn't give me a straight answer. Finally, she broke down crying and admitted everything but said she did it because she didn't want me to get hurt. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The sister who I thought had sacrificed everything for me had been betraying me in the worst possible way. All those nights she comforted me when I cried about James's betrayal. She had been part of it all along. I told her I was done being her maid of honor and wanted nothing to do with her wedding or her life anymore. She started crying harder and begging me not to do this to her. She said she was sorry and that she regretted everything. She kept bringing up how she had raised me and taken care of me all these years. But all I could think about was how she had helped destroy my marriage and made a fool out of me. I walked out of her house that day and I haven't spoken to her since. She's been calling and texting constantly, saying I'm being dramatic and trying to ruin her wedding just because I'm bitter about my own failed marriage. Some of our relatives and mutual friends have been pressuring me to forgive her, saying that she's the only family I have left, and that sisters should stick together no matter what. But I can't get past this betrayal. How can I stand beside her at her wedding knowing what she did to me? Ida for refusing to attend her wedding? Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my original post, and I feel like my whole world has been turned upside down even more. The support for my post was overwhelming, and it gave me the strength to start doing something I should have done years ago, asking questions about things that never quite made sense about Sarah. After I shared what happened with Maria and John, our childhood friends who lived next door to us growing up, they exchanged this weird look that made my stomach drop. We were sitting in Maria's kitchen when they finally started telling me things about Sarah that I had been completely blind to all these years. Apparently, Sarah had been manipulating and lying to people for as long as they could remember. Back in high school, she would frequently spread rumors about other girls who got close to her boyfriends, causing several girls to switch schools due to bullying. Maria confessed that she had distanced herself from our friendship group because Sarah had threatened to reveal a secret about Maria's father's drinking problem if Maria didn't stop hanging out with me alone. The revelations kept coming. John, who had briefly dated me in college before suddenly breaking things off, admitted that Sarah had told him I was cheating on him with my study partner. He believed her because she showed him doctored texts from my phone. I was shocked because I had spent months wondering what I had done wrong to make him end things so abruptly. Sarah had comforted me through that breakup, all while knowing she was the cause of it. But the biggest bombshell came when our Aunt Martha called me 3 days ago. She had heard about what happened from Maria's mother and said she couldn't keep quiet anymore. Martha revealed that when our parents died, they had left behind a significant inheritance, close to $800,000, that was meant to be split equally between Sarah and me. Since I was a minor at the time, Sarah was supposed to be my trustee until I turned 21. However, Sarah had somehow managed to manipulate the paperwork with the help of a shady lawyer. She convinced everyone that since she would be taking care of me, she needed control of all the money to properly provide for my future. She spun this story about how she was sacrificing her dreams of college to raise me, and everyone bought it. The truth was, she had more than enough money for both of us to go to college and live comfortably. Martha had always felt guilty about not speaking up sooner, but Sarah had this way of making everyone feel like questioning her would somehow hurt me. She told me that those 2 jobs Sarah always talked about, she never actually worked them. She had made up that whole story to make herself look more sacrificing and to explain where the money for our living expenses came from. Then yesterday, Tom reached out to me through email. He wanted to meet and talk about Sarah, saying there were things I needed to know. We met at a coffee shop, and he looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. He told me that Sarah had been pressuring him to sign a prenup that would basically give her control over all his assets, including his business. When he refused, telling her he wanted something more balanced, she started subtly threatening him. She had somehow dug up information about a mistake his company made years ago, a contract dispute that had been settled out of court. She implied that if he didn't sign her version of the prenup, this information might find its way to his competitors and clients. Tom said he had initially brushed it off as a joke, but then Sarah started dropping more and more hints about other secrets she knew about his family and business. He showed me texts where she had gone from sweet and understanding to subtly threatening within the same conversation. It was chilling to see how she could twist things around. Tom said he was having serious doubts about the wedding now, especially after hearing what she had done to me. The most painful part? While Tom was telling me all this, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Lisa, one of the women James had cheated on me with. She had found me through social media and wanted to apologize. She told me that she had never known James was married at first, and when she found out, Sarah was the one who convinced her to continue the affair. Sarah had told Lisa that I was abusive towards James and that he was only staying with me out of pity. Lisa said she felt guilty but believed Sarah because she was his wife's sister, so she must be telling the truth. Sarah has gone completely off the deep end since I cut contact. She's been telling everyone that I'm trying to ruin her wedding because I'm jealous that she can maintain a healthy relationship while mine failed. She's been calling my workplace so much that my boss had to get involved. She's even started threatening to expose my private medical information. I had a miscarriage 2 years ago that only she knew about, if I don't agree to be her maid of honor again. But her threats aren't working anymore. Each day brings new revelations about her manipulations and lies. Some mutual friends have started reaching out, sharing their own stories of how Sarah had manipulated them over the years. It's like once one person started speaking up, everyone finally felt brave enough to share their experiences. I'm still processing all of this information. The sister I thought had sacrificed everything for me had actually been stealing from me and sabotaging my life for years. Every time I think it can't get worse, something new comes up. I've started documenting everything and have talked to a lawyer about possibly recovering my portion of the inheritance. For now, I'm standing firm in my decision to stay away from her wedding and her life. She's no longer the person I thought she was. I'm not even sure she ever was that person. Some family members are still pressuring me to reconcile with her, but now that I know the truth, there's no going back. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and everything has completely imploded. Last week, Tom officially called off the wedding after discovering that Sarah had been secretly recording all their conversations. He found dozens of recordings saved on her cloud account when he was helping her sync her new phone. The recordings weren't just of their regular conversations. She had been specifically trying to catch him saying things that could damage his reputation or business if taken out of context. The final straw for Tom was finding a folder titled Leverage on her laptop. It contained not just the recordings, but detailed notes about his family members, business partners, and even his ex-girlfriends. She had been systematically gathering dirt on everyone in his life. When he confronted her about it, she tried to play it off as wedding research but couldn't explain why she needed information about his teenage daughter's therapy sessions or his sister's past relationship problems. After Tom left her, Sarah completely lost it. She showed up at my workplace last Tuesday, completely drunk at 2 p.m. She stormed into our office building, screaming about how I had ruined her life and turned everyone against her. She was saying wild things about how I had always been jealous of her and how I had manipulated Tom into leaving her. My coworkers were shocked. They only knew me as the quiet person who brings cookies to office potlucks. Security had to physically remove her while she kept screaming that she would make me pay. My boss Jack was incredibly understanding, but it was mortifying. The next morning, I received a large manila envelope in my mailbox. At first, I thought it was more threats from Sarah, but when I opened it, I found something much more disturbing. There were copies of old bank statements, checks, and legal documents dating back to when our parents were still alive. The documents showed that Sarah had been systematically stealing from our parents for years before their death. She had somehow gotten access to their accounts and had been transferring small amounts regularly to a secret account. The most shocking document was a letter from our parents' old lawyer to Sarah, dated just a week before their accident. The lawyer was questioning some irregularities in their accounts and mentioned potential legal action. I took everything to my lawyer, and she confirmed that Sarah had forged our parents' signatures on several documents. She must have gotten pretty good at it because she later used the same skill to manipulate the inheritance paperwork. The evidence suggests that Sarah might have known about our parents' financial situation even before their accident. This revelation has opened up a whole new set of questions that I'm almost afraid to ask. My lawyer has advised me not to speculate publicly about certain aspects of this situation for legal reasons, but we're pursuing action to recover my share of the inheritance and the stolen money. When word got out about the financial fraud, most of our relatives finally stopped pressuring me to reconcile with Sarah. Our Aunt Martha was especially upset because she had helped Sarah get control of the inheritance, believing she would take care of me. Several family members have now come forward with stories of Sarah borrowing money from them over the years, always with elaborate sob stories about needing it for my education or healthcare. None of that money ever made it to its supposed purpose. Sarah has been frantically trying to do damage control. She's been calling everyone in our family, crying about how she's being framed and that all of this is some elaborate conspiracy against her. She even tried to claim that James was the one who forged the documents and that she was just another victim. But nobody's buying her stories anymore. There are too many documents, too many witnesses, too much evidence of her manipulations. Yesterday, she sent me a long email trying to justify everything she did. She claimed she only took the money because she knew she could invest it better than our parents. She said she hid my inheritance from me because I was too immature to handle it. She even tried to say that she helped James cheat on me because she thought I needed a wake-up call about being too dependent on people. The mental gymnastics and her justifications were almost impressive if they weren't so horrifying. I've stopped reading her messages now. Every time I think I've discovered the full extent of her betrayal, something new comes up. My lawyer is confident about the legal case, saying the evidence is overwhelming. Several relatives who initially sided with Sarah have now offered to testify about her financial manipulations if needed. Update 3. 3 months have passed since my last update, and the situation with Sarah has gone from bad to worse. The legal proceedings are moving forward, and my lawyer says we have an airtight case for recovering not just my inheritance but also the money she stole from our parents. But Sarah doesn't seem to be accepting reality. 2 weeks ago, she tried to flee the country. She had bought a one-way ticket to Mexico and was trying to transfer large sums of money to an offshore account. Thankfully, because of the ongoing legal investigation, there was a flag on her accounts, and authorities stopped her at the airport. They found her carrying over $50,000 in cash and several pieces of expensive jewelry that she had bought with the stolen money. The day after her failed escape attempt, Tom called me in a panic. Sarah had broken into his house in the middle of the night. His security cameras caught her trying to access his home office computer, probably looking for business information she could use as leverage. When his alarm system went off, she tried to play it off as though she was just collecting her things, but the police didn't buy it. She was arrested for breaking and entering. She spent 2 nights in jail before being released on bail. The conditions of her bail prevent her from contacting me, Tom, or any potential witnesses in the fraud case. But that hasn't stopped her from having her friends harass us. She's somehow convinced a few people that she's the victim in all this, and they've been leaving nasty comments on my social media and showing up at my workplace. What's even more disturbing is that James reached out to me last week. Apparently, Sarah had been blackmailing him too. She had evidence of some illegal business dealings he had been involved in, which is why he let her help him hide money during our divorce. He offered to testify against her in exchange for immunity from the financial fraud charges. My lawyer is considering it, but I'm not sure I want anything to do with either of them anymore. The most recent development came yesterday when our Aunt Martha discovered that Sarah had taken out loans in her name. Martha had trusted Sarah with some paperwork years ago while she was recovering from surgery, and Sarah had used that opportunity to forge her signature on several loan applications. The total amount is over $100,000. Martha has filed a separate police report about this. I've completely cut contact with Sarah and anyone who supports her. I've changed my phone number, moved to a new apartment, and gotten a restraining order. Some relatives still try to guilt me about abandoning her, saying she's facing prison time and needs family support. But where was their concern when she was stealing from me and helping destroy my marriage? The whole experience has taught me that sometimes the people we trust the most can be the ones who hurt us the worst. I've started rebuilding my life without Sarah's toxic influence. It's strange, I used to think I couldn't live without her because she was all I had left after our parents died. But now I realize that she made sure I felt that way so she could keep controlling me. The inheritance case is set to go to court next month. My lawyer estimates it could take several months to resolve everything, but she's confident about the outcome. Meanwhile, Sarah is facing multiple criminal charges: fraud, theft, breaking and entering, and attempted blackmail. She's looking at significant prison time. I'm done feeling guilty about any of this. She made her choices, and now she has to face the consequences. I'm focusing on healing and moving forward with my life, surrounded by genuine people who don't manipulate and betray me for their own gain.